What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs. Today I am going to take you on a magical trip that doesn't include hallucinogens from the 1960s. Today we're going to take a look at the land of enchantment, New Mexico. Santa Fe, New Mexico to be exact. The city different is the nickname that Santa Fe carries, and I have to admit I kind of like that one. Kind of different, no pun intended. Santa Fe isn't as hot as most people assume. Most people think since it's in New Mexico, it's the desert. It's not. It is more of a mountain town. It is classified as a subtropical highland climate or warm summer humid continental climate, whichever you prefer. The city has trees, mountain views, and amazing architecture. Their hottest months only get up in the mid 80s. They've had some 100-degree days and their record highs and stuff, but a majority of their hot days maybe get up to 85, 86, something like that. And they get really cold winters. Santa Fe was founded in 1610 when New Mexico was a province of New Spain. Yes, that was a thing. The original governor and founder of Santa Fe was actually arrested by the church back then. He was put through the Mexican Inquisition and eventually vindicated. If you don't know what the Inquisition was, it was sort of an investigation the church put people through to combat heresy. And, Google it, it's pretty interesting. Basically, to make sure everyone was on board with whatever the church was selling back then. The most famous was the Spanish Inquisition, which included a bunch of people getting tortured to death, which is always fun, I guess, if you're a Spanish inquisitor. Not sure what the Mexican Inquisition was all about, but I'm sure it included questions about tacos, thus furthering the movement to make Taco Tuesday a religious event. Santa Fe is home to about 68,000 people, with the entire metro area only holding about 145,000, so it's really not a big place. Santa Fe is a great city with amazing people and food. But it's not for everyone. Just like all cities, not everyone fits in certain places. Let's find out if the city different is your type of place in my top 10 reasons not to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Number 10, drivers. Santa Fe has some horrible drivers. They were voted as having the worst drivers in New Mexico in 2017 and 2018. Be careful driving around this city. Drunk driving seems to be a common thing here. Their local news is filled with DWI arrests. Last year, they arrested a young lady who backed the van she was driving into a couple parked cars. That isn't incredibly strange. That type of thing happens all the time. Until you realize that she was driving a van full of special needs people. That's right, she's a caregiver by trade, and she was drunk driving in the van for her work. Makes no sense. But to top that one off, just last month, State Senator Richard Martinez was charged with driving while intoxicated after a crash at the beginning of July. A judge ordered Martinez release on the condition that he not possess or consume alcohol or enter any establishment that sells alcohol. So you could find Richard at various McDonald's and donut places cutting loose these days. I'm sure he had a really great lawyer for this one. Maybe one of those Anaheim, California lawyers. I heard they do great work because of all the tourists. I don't know. Number 9, skincare. Even if Santa Fe isn't technically a desert, you'll still need to pick up some Murad's skincare stuff before getting there. The air is so dry, combined with the heat and being a little more than 7,000 feet above sea level, it gets pretty bad on the skin. If you're not already used to this condition, be prepared for cracked and peeling skin. It just happens. Like I said, especially if you're not used to that type of climate. Now, this is where some local chimes in about something that I've lived here since, the Jurassic period, and I don't need lotion or sunblock. Then they'll throw in something about someone being weak because they can't handle the weather there. Just stop typing. You're not weak because you have a brain and you don't want a face that looks like beef jerky that's been sitting on a park bench for 3 years. Just common sense. Take care of your skin. Number 8, the dust. Santa Fe has a major dust problem. Since the area is normally very windy, they don't have a lot of grass holding the dirt down. It's a bad situation for a lot of people. So much dust gets built up in the air, making it hard to breathe, especially for those who have sensitive lungs, maybe asthma or allergies, things like that. I was in Santa Fe during a very windy week a couple years back. The guy I was there doing voiceover work for said it's normally not this bad. It was bad. Everything sort of felt like it had a brown baby powder coating or something like that. It was weird. But if you do have asthma or something, this might be a little rough on you. Number 7, the crime. Once you get past the drunk drivers, the Santa Fe Police Department still has a lot on their plate. Santa Fe is described as having one of the worst crime rates in the country, with about 41 reported crimes per every 1,000 residents. Maybe a few extra locks Invest in a good security system, buy a dog, or maybe even a Wolverine before you move here. Imagine that, a guy breaks into your house, you come running downstairs with your Wolverine, you come face to face with the burglar who should have worn a pair of Depends at this point. The good news is Santa Fe isn't nearly as bad as Albuquerque, New Mexico. Santa Fe's crime rate is 50% higher than the national average, where Albuquerque is 218% higher than the national average. Yeah, like I said, not nearly as bad. So, if you're moving to Albuquerque, maybe you might want to buy a honey badger for security. They're a little more ferocious, it seems like. Number 6, creatures. Santa Fe has some creatures that like to break into people's homes. These creatures are small and mostly harmless, but you should keep your doors closed and keep screens on your windows. Since Santa Fe has a desert terrain, even though it's sort of a mountain town, you need to watch where you walk and what rocks you flip over. They have harmless snakes, they have poisonous snakes, lizards, centipedes, and spiders are everywhere. Keep your eyes open for them. The Santa Fe area is home to 3 different rattlesnakes, the western diamondback, the prairie, and the ridge nose. They also have black bears and mountain lions in the areas outside the city that you should probably keep in mind if you decide to take a picnic out there. You start pulling out food outside the city in the wrong time of year, you could get a visitor. Now, this is where the locals will explain they've never seen them and they don't bother you and okay, yang, whatever. Okay, maybe, but they are there, and those people who get freaked out by things like spiders and snakes, keep this stuff in mind before you make the trek out to the city different. Number 5, cost of living. The cost of living here isn't great. The overall cost of living is 20% higher than the US average. The main factor that plays into this is housing, which is 79% higher than the rest of the country. The average home here costs about $350,000 on average, where the average for the US is about $190,000. Now, before you comment, that's the average, so keep averages in mind, and don't tell us how houses in New Mexico you could find for $200,000. Okay, I'm sure you can. You can also find some for $4 million. In the middle someplace is what we call the average. Moving on. I don't get why the price here is so high. They aren't breaking any records with employment. Schools aren't really good. No oceanfront property. Santa Fe is in one of the worst states in the country. Normally, the cost of living with all those factors involved is pretty low. I mean, you gotta have at least some of those stats to be decent to have a high cost of living. Guess not in Santa Fe. They're making their own rules. Number 4, elevation. Santa Fe is one of the higher cities when it comes to elevation in the country, and that's opposed to Portland, Oregon, which has some of the highest people in the nation. Santa Fe sits about 7,200 feet above sea level, and that's higher than Denver, which is often called the Mile High City for being a mile high. This can be extremely hazardous for those who have sensitive lungs, since the higher up you go, the thinner the air is and less oxygen. Combined with that and the dust issues, you have a breathing cocktail nobody with bad lungs needs. It's just a bad mix. I was trying to think of a really good bartender joke here, but I got sidetracked thinking about how bartenders decided they were mixologists a couple years back. What is the deal with that? Why do people come up with new titles? Are they trying to add a little prestige to their career path or their chosen career, whatever? That's like me calling myself an award-winning filmmaker because I have a silver play button from YouTube for getting 100,000 subs. In reality, I'm just a dude that travels and says weird shit. Number 3, sun exposure. Now, we sort of talked about this one on number 9 with skincare, but the sun being so high, it's kind of tricky and it'll sneak up on you if you're not used to the area. That's why it sort of gets 2 spots on this list. The average U.S. city sees about 205 days of sun per year. That equals out to about 6.5 months. However, in Santa Fe, these residents see about 283 days of sunlight, which equals to a little over 9 months. It's recommended that you stock up on hats, sunscreen, and all kinds of lotion. Remember, nobody wants to look 75 when they just aged enough to visit the mixologist legally for the first time. And it sucks when the guy at Subway freaks out when you start talking and says, "I'm sorry, I thought you were a big piece of driftwood someone brought in." Number 2, culture shock. It's going to be a little different, especially if you're moving from a more northern state, let's say. You'll be confronted with a huge culture shock, trust me. You'll have to switch out your wardrobe for more colorful clothes instead of neutrals, and margaritas at lunch are always encouraged. Native American and Hispanic cultures run strong through this city. It may seem a little overwhelming at first. The good news is that the people of Santa Fe are very inviting. So while you're there trying to wrap your head around the sights and the sounds of Santa Fe, nobody's going to be a total a-hole to you. And number 1, local government nonsense. Santa Fe is very wrapped up in politics. If taking part in a political debate while trying to shop for groceries isn't your idea of a good time, Santa Fe may not be for you. Between controversial bills and opposing views among residents and the local government, it may feel like a war zone out there. In reality, this crap is going on across the nation right now. You just don't expect it here for some reason. At least I didn't. My own personal observation was that the people aren't as interested as, let's say, the national politics like the presidency or something, but more the local and state stuff. I really get the feeling that the residents are just tired of it. And they're just sick of the people in office right now and have been for some time. But that's just kind of my vibe I got and things I've read. So yeah, if you don't like getting involved in politics, just keep in mind it's there and it's everywhere in Santa Fe. If that's not your thing, at least just be aware of it. All right, so that's my top 10 reasons not to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Don't forget all the links below. Buy yourself a t-shirt from The World According to Briggs. It supports the channel. Don't forget to give the video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you already haven't. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.